Hey everyone, Raymond here. In our last video we talked about sketches and the basic sketch shapes that SOLIDWORKS has and the features that can be used with them to make more complex things. This video is going to be about sketch dimensioning, how you can dimension sketches to set them so they can't be changed or easily changed. And then we'll get into whether a sketch is defined or if it's fully defined or over-defined. And then I'll show you a little bit about global variables and equations. So why don't we open something up. So we'll start with just making a regular rectangle here. So see the Smart Dimensioning button here. You're going to use this for making all your dimensions. So you click on it, you'll see the little arrows pop up, and you can just click on a line, and it'll give you a dimension. So you do that, and we can make this, whatever we want. So our units are in inches right now, so if I put 12, that line is now 12 inches. One of the nice things about this box is you can dimension things with other units. So let's say I want this to be 100 millimeters. You put in 100 millimeters, and then it changes it to the appropriate size automatically. We'll go back to 12 inches. So one thing to note, our rectangle, doing some weird stuff. So our rectangle can still grow left and right because we haven't defined that dimension. But it's moving up and down. We've essentially fixed the width of the rectangle. So let's put a second one in here. We'll make this one 12 inches too. So now, as you can see, our sketch has turned from blue to black. What that means is our sketch has now become fully defined. And you can see this down here. For school, they hit on fully defined, and they generally want you to fully define all your sketches. It's a good idea to try and make them as defined as you can, but in the real world, that doesn't always happen, at least for formula. And it's not always a big deal, but it is something the school stresses pretty heavily on the SOLIDWORKS exam and stuff, so make sure your sketches are always black when you're done with them. So we can also, let's say we put in the wrong dimension, you can just double click on a dimension and then you can go in and change it, and it'll automatically update the sketch. So let's also define this wall. So this length is already technically defined. So if we try and define it a second time, you'll see it'll bring up this make dimension driven option. So if you hit make this dimension driven, it basically just shows this value. So I can change this one, and it'll automatically update this one. This dimension cannot be altered because it's technically linked to this dimension here. Now the other option, leave this dimension driving. That means you're basically altering the driving dimension from this one to this one, but it never really works like that. Now both of these dimensions can't be changed, and you get this yellow box, which you'll see is an item conflict. Yellow boxes are bad. So if you just go back in, it doesn't matter which one we delete, but we'll delete one of them, and now we're back to black, which is good. Alright. So I'm going to show you guys a little something about global variables. So if you go to Tools and go to Equations, you can bring up this box here. Depending on what version of SOLIDWORKS you have, it may look a little different. But they've got global variables, features, and equations. So you can do things. Let's say we want to define the width of our rectangle to be 12 inches. And we want the length to be 24 inches. And then we are going to extrude this one, and we want the thickness to be 2 inches. Put the inches in there. We can hit OK. So to go back into our sketch, you right click, hit Edit Sketch. We're going to delete these dimensions. So our sketch is back to being undefined, so it's all movable. And we're going to redimension it. So to add a global variable, you, in this line here, hit equals, and it brings up a bunch of options. So we can pick a global variable that we've already defined. You can pick a function of some sort, and you can enter actual mathematical equations to solve things. Or you can pick a file property. We're not going to use any of that stuff. So we're going to say our width is that. And now it's turned it to black on the edges. And the width, it's going to move the rectangle. Or it's not, but. And then we'll do the same thing for this one. Do the length. So we'll get into the features tab a little bit later, but for this one we're just gonna extrude something. So basically we're taking that two-dimensional sketch and making it three-dimensional. So if I had it 4 inches, 6 inches, we're gonna make it our thickness of 2 inches. So now our sketch, whenever you have an a dimension that's defined by an equation or a global variable, it puts the sigma in front of it, so you know that. So if we wanted to change those, you can go back into this equations tab, and we can just update the information in the table, and it will automatically update our part. We can also relate the sides. So let's say we want the width to be 12 inches, and then we want the length to be 3 times the width. And then we want the thickness to be 1/4 of the width. Just enter the equations in, hit OK, and we get our part updated to the correct dimensions. In the next video, we will get into actually making some parts and stuff using this features tab. This controls all of your 3D stuff pretty much. So we'll get into that next time. All right.